from Patty Cake. A warm welcome to my channel.
And if you're looking for authentic ingredient proportions and all the essential instructions for getting a recipe right, you've come to the right place. With Christmas barely a month away, let's see how to make some super delicious ginger wine for Christmas using my quick and easy recipe. Many of you requested it, and one subscriber wanted a non-alcoholic version. So I'll show you that too. Now let's get started. The first thing you'll have to do is sanitize all your equipment. The containers, utensils, spoons, your strainer, funnel. Wash everything with warm soapy water. And finally, rinse everything twice or thrice with boiling hot water. And then let the equipment dry. And do go ahead and sterilize whatever you can. That would be even better. You have to take these precautions to keep your wine from getting contaminated during the process of making it. Having emphasized that, now let's check out the handful of ingredients we'll need. To make around 1 liter of ginger wine, we'll need 100 grams of ginger. I scraped away the skin, washed it, and then roughly crushed it using a pestle and mortar. And we'll also need 80 grams of raisins. I've chopped them up roughly. 320 grams or 1.5 cups of brown sugar. You could also use regular granulated sugar. And a few spices. That's 3 cloves, 4 cardamom pods. I've already cracked them open. And 1 small cinnamon stick. In addition, we need an orange and a sour lime. We'll need the juice of the orange and the zest of half of it. And similarly, the juice of the sour lime, but the zest from just half of it. The zest is the thin outer part of the skin and does not include the white inner part, which is bitter. To ferment the entire ginger mixture, we need yeast. This will be added last. Now, if you want to make a larger quantity of wine, you could double or triple the recipe accordingly. This is a scalable recipe. Here's the zest of the sour lime and the zest of the orange. And this is the lime juice and the orange juice. We'll add these after the wine mixture has been boiled and cooled. In this vessel, I have 1.25 liters of water which I have set to boil on high heat. To it, let's add the ginger, the raisins, the spices, the lime and orange zests, and the sugar. Let's stir everything well. And when the mixture comes to a boil, we'll reduce the heat to low and let it continue to boil for half an hour. In some recipes, you'll find they also include 2 or 3 dried red chilies in the ingredients to raise the heat level. I'm skipping this ingredient because I think the heat that comes from the ginger is good enough for the wine. But for this quantity, if you want, you could add 1 small dry red chili after breaking off the stalk and then breaking the chili into 2 parts. This is a versatile wine. It can be enjoyed cold or warm. And besides, it has health benefits as well. It's a natural remedy for digestion problems and also problems like lack of appetite, nausea, or common cold. After half an hour, we'll stir in half a teaspoon of citric acid and turn off the heat. We'll now let this cool to room temperature. Now that the mixture has cooled, we'll stir in the lime juice and the orange juice. The only ingredient left to add now is the yeast. However, if you strain this mixture now before adding the yeast, you could bottle it and enjoy it as non-alcoholic ginger wine. Though actually, technically, it won't be wine because by definition, wine is a fermented product that contains alcohol. But let's forget about whether the name is technically correct or not and let me filter a small amount into a glass. Your delicious non-alcoholic ginger wine is now ready to enjoy. This hasn't been chilled, so I added in some ice, but will now add in a little more. Even if it's not real wine, this is an amazingly delicious drink. It has all the flavor of traditional ginger wine, but without the zing of alcohol. Just remember to use a sterile strainer if you want to bottle this. And once you bottle it, store it in the fridge and finish it within 7 days. So wait for 2 weeks or so to prepare non-alcoholic ginger wine if you want to enjoy this for Christmas, okay? And if this is the beverage you want to make, the recipe will end right here for you. But if you want to prepare traditional ginger wine, we have to proceed to the next step and ferment it using yeast. I'm using instant dry yeast, but you could also use active dry yeast. Instant yeast can be added directly into the ginger mixture, but active dry yeast will have to be bloomed and activated first. For the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with working with yeast, I'll bloom this yeast first to show you how it's done. To about 2 tablespoons of warm water, let's add around half a teaspoon of sugar, stir it a little, and then add a quarter teaspoon of yeast. Let's cover this and let the yeast bloom for around 10 minutes or more. In the meanwhile, let's transfer the ginger mixture to this ceramic jar or barni as it's called in India. To it, we'll now add this bloomed yeast. Let's give the mixture a good stir. It's important to see that the mixture does not fill the jar right up to the top. There has to be some breathing space above the level of the mixture because during fermentation, carbon dioxide gets released from it, which is why the jar shouldn't be airtight during fermentation. It needs to let the released carbon dioxide gas escape. To allow the release of the gas, we'll put a clean cloth over the mouth of the jar and secure it with a string or rubber band. And then we'll just place the lid loosely on the top and keep this jar undisturbed in a safe place and let the mixture ferment for 7 days. But in case you'll be using a transparent glass or plastic jar like this, then after covering the mouth with a clean cloth and securing it with a string or rubber band, just place the lid over the covered mouth of the jar. But after that, cover the whole jar with a thick kitchen towel because the fermentation has to take place in the dark, protected from light. And remember to see that there's a 2-inch breathing space above the level of the mixture. That's absolutely important. There's no need to stir the mixture every day during the fermentation period. We'll do that just once on the 4th day. On day 4, let's check how our mixture is doing. Wow, it has such a nice sweet aroma. I'll now give it a stir with a sterilized spoon and cover the mouth of the jar again. We'll now keep this aside for 3 more days. After 7 days of fermentation, we'll move on to the next step. But remember, even now, the precaution of sanitizing your equipment still applies. So I'll give it a stir first with a sterilized and dry spoon, and then I'll strain the liquid into a sterilized vessel using a sterilized strainer. But I'm going to line the strainer with a thin cotton napkin that I've sterilized in boiling water, letting the water simmer for 5 minutes. I'm putting the wet napkin directly from the boiling water onto the strainer. You could fold it like this, so the liquid could filter through 4 layers. But that way, the filtration will be very slow. So I'm using just a double layer. The stains on the napkin are from the previous times I've used it for filtration. Now let's transfer the mixture from the barni in small quantities. A gentle reminder to please like this video if you find it useful and do subscribe for more tasty recipes. Once all the liquid has been filtered, you could press down on the solids in the strainer with the back of a spoon or ladle. like this, to squeeze out some more of the wine. Okay, now let's transfer this filtered wine to a sterilized, wide-mouthed glass bottle. The capacity of this bottle is 900 ml. So as you can see, this recipe has produced 900 ml of wine. I had kept another smaller sterilized glass bottle ready in case the volume was a liter or more. The final volume of the wine depends on how much water gets evaporated while boiling the mixture in the first step. We'll now fix the lid on the bottle, but we won't screw it on completely. We'll give it just a few turns so that the bottle is not airtight. And since the bottle is transparent, we'll cover it completely with a thick kitchen towel first, and then let the wine stand undisturbed at room temperature for 5 days to let it settle. During the settling period, the fermentation process will continue. Now I don't mind if the wine is a little hazy, for that doesn't affect the taste in any way. And therefore, I'm not adding any chemicals to it to make it clearer. And not adding any preservatives either. I'll see you after 5 days. After 5 days, which is the minimum standing period, there's hardly any sediment at the bottom. Hope you can see this. This is mostly the starch and other sediments from the ginger and some residual yeast cells. But still, we'll carefully decant and strain the wine into a sanitized vessel. Avoiding transferring the sediment. And then pour it into bottles using a sanitized funnel. This smaller bottle is only half full. I chilled the wine for an hour and now it's ready to be served and enjoyed. But wait, let me first explain something about the alcohol content of wine, usually mentioned on wine bottles as ABV, the full form being alcohol by volume. Sometimes it's mentioned as V/V, that is, volume by volume. So for example, if the label of a wine bottle states the alcohol content is 15% ABV, it means that if you pour out 100 ml of the wine, that's less than half a cup, into a glass, only 15 ml of it will be alcohol. Hope that's clear. Now, when allowed to ferment for a full 20 to 21 days, ginger wine will have an ABV of around 15 to 16%. The ginger wine we've made, however, will have a lower alcohol content of around 10 to 12% because we gave it a shorter fermentation period of just 12 days. To give you a comparison, the port wine sold in Goa has an ABV of around 14%. So if you want a full strength ginger wine, you'll have to let it ferment for 18 to 20 days at least, stirring the ginger mixture just 3 or 4 times during that period. From now till Christmas, I'll store my wine bottles in the fridge. You'll have to do the same thing after letting your wine settle for 5 days. Storing the wine in the fridge will stop the fermentation process from continuing. Okay, now let me go ahead and pour out some of the wine so you can check it out. Believe me, you'll work up an appetite even by just breathing in the aroma of this wine. Imagine what the delicious taste could do. So do give my quicker ginger wine recipe a shot this Christmas and say cheers as you enjoy a chilled glass of wine with your Christmas dinner. I'm telling you, the taste will blow your mind and you'll want to make and enjoy it every year. But once you give my recipe a shot, please send me some feedback, okay? I'll see you soon with another Christmas recipe. So stay tuned. And till then, Happy cooking and happy brewing!